Hi everybody, thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive. Greetings dear ones, I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. For these years, wherever we are, we speak of a paradigm shift that is occurring now. 30 years ago, if you had asked, why is Kryon here? My partner would not know the answer. It took 3 or 4 years to get going, for him to actually speak out loud, to say these kinds of things. And even then, you would not have known. Even after Book 1 in 1993, or Book 2 in 1994, the why is Kryon here would not really have been fully revealed. It took many more years to realize that that was all a precursor so that you could see real, honest channeling. And get used to one who would channel and have no tricks, no marketing, but love. 30 years of Kryon, consistently, the message of empowerment and the fact that humans are here on purpose and are not a victim of the planet. Only recently has it truly been revealed why Kryon is here. And that is to assist you through a magnificent paradigm shift, the biggest shift in consciousness on the planet, one that was expected. And you also realize that Kryon did not appear literally to my partner or anyone. Not really. Until something remarkable happened on this planet. In the late 80s, the Soviet Union ceased to exist and disarmed something that would have indeed caused war again. But the war would have been everything you thought it would have been. And very few would have survived, dear ones. And the earth would have lain there void and dark. And all that the Pleiadians had done to get to this place would have been for nothing. That's free choice. Were the Star Mothers prepared for that? Yes. How can you say that, Kryon? Because they'd seen it before. Did you know that the Pleiadians had gone through their shift? We've said this before. With their own free choice, they had done that. This is a repeating cycle of victory and failure with free choice, where humans would have taken a consciousness that was already low to the lowest and terminated themselves and not recovered. That was imminent. And some of you were there. You were living through those times. My partner speaks of it often. 50,000 nuclear weapons all pointed at one another, ready to be launched. How would you ever survive such a thing? A wild card appeared. And in that, history shifted and history changed and paved the way for you sitting there today. You think this is over dramatic? Let me ask you. Go back in history. Who predicted the fall of the Soviet Union in that way, in that time? A superpower that literally vanished almost overnight. They ran out of money, dear ones. That ought to tell you something. But that was not predicted. It was not seen at all. That was a wild card. And that was something that happened because the consciousness of this planet was already starting on an upward scale. All of these things, if you lay them out and connect the dots, you'll see it. This is not an accident. All of these things coming together for the precession of the equinox as the indigenous of the planet had predicted, you're here. And the shift begins. Kryon is here to facilitate the shift. 30 years ago, you didn't know that. The things that Kryon taught about, and I remember it vividly when my partner uttered the words, talking about the magnetic grid moving and why it would move, not truly understanding any of that or the influence of consciousness that it would have, because only later would there have been experiments showing that consciousness and the magnetics were actually allied. They affect each other. That's science. That's proven. And the proof came with satellites, not readers. Dear ones, you're looking at a new paradigm. One that sees consciousness very different than you ever saw it before. The shift that I speak of right now is real. It's as real as the love I speak of that is starting to permeate human nature. What's the difference? What is the shift really? I will tell you that the evolvement of human consciousness evolves from a low level of animal instinct and survival and fear into a higher level of understanding, compassion, benevolence, and love. Simply stated, dear ones, you're coming alive with the idea that the love of God, the Creator, is inside you and can manifest and change things. That's the difference. Love. It's been overstated and understated. It's been made fun of. There are so many kinds of love on this planet. And that the one that we speak of is the love of the creative source that knows your name right now as you sit in the chair. And invites you to feel every cell of your body radiating with how beautiful it is and how connected you are. And how this planet is going through a shift that someday in history will be noted because you'll change the date system again. Before and after the consciousness shift where humanity stopped warring and killing each other en masse. Where they understood that every single human being wants the same basic thing. How long is this going to take, Ryan? We look around the earth right now. There's nothing like that. There are even segments of those which would call themselves spiritual, which will kill you if you don't agree with them. How is that going to straighten out? And the answer is slowly, dear ones, but it will. Oh, it will. It has to. Because at some point in time, the dark consciousness will become the minority, the real minority, forced into a corner of love around them. A love that would invite them to see that which is the truth, the light. And many of them won't. They will go extinct before they will turn to the light. It's going to happen that way. The battle is not over. But light is winning. And light will continue to win, dear ones. What is it you see? Again and again, I say, what is it that you can point to that is so different today that you didn't have just a little while ago? And the answer is, you're starting to reveal inappropriate things which have always been inappropriate. And they're coming to the surface. And there are those who performed inappropriate things because their fathers did, and their fathers did, and their fathers did. But now there's consequence. Because darkness is being seen. Whereas before it could always hide. In a darker energy, darkness is everywhere. It hides. You never get ahead. It's always going to fight you, and light is going to lose. Well, that, dear ones, is changing. It has already changed. That's how we said earlier today in a former channel, you can walk into that unknown place and expect light. You can walk into an unknown place and say, I am glad I don't know what's going to happen. Because it's going to surprise me with something better than I thought. I want to tell you a story. It's a tiny little short metaphor. It's a parable, if you wish. This particular parable does not involve a human. So the parable will not have anything to do with woe. It's the first parable that doesn't have to do with woe. I would like to tell you about a community in a fish tank. It's a real fish tank in a real place. And the reason I say community, because if you were a fish, dear ones, you would really not be aware of what's on the other side of the glass. The fish see the reflections of themselves. They're not really truly aware of the outside, except, for instance, maybe light will change. They're aware that food will come then from the top of the tank, but they're not aware that a human is giving it to them. It seems to simply be part of the scenario of life, just like for you it rains. And you don't think, perhaps, that there's a giant up there sprinkling. The fish don't know. But this is a story about a community. And the metaphor has knowing fish. It has fish that will be in the community and will be able to talk. And the fish we're going to talk about has a name. It's a tropical fish. It's a spiritual one. So it's an angelfish. Angel remembers the time when it started. Something was happening that had never happened before, and she had been in that community, in that very large fish tank that never moved. It was so big. It took her a long time to swim from one end of it to another. It was her world. She never really thought of it as being confining because it was so large, plenty of space for her to swim and to live. And over a period of years in her life with the other fish in the tank, there was sameness, and they really appreciated that. You want the temperature to be the same, the pH levels to be the same, the lighting to be the same, all of the things that were expected of a fish, not knowing they were in a tank, expecting perhaps they were in a lake or an ocean, was there. They didn't know any better. Angel was a happy fish and had friends that were also happy to be fish in the tank, living a life where things worked a certain way. They had certain expectations. The food arrived. The light was there. They were also aware of night and day because the owner carefully turned off the lights at night and on during the day. They had their sleep periods just like they might in the ocean. And then it changed. The first thing that Angel noticed, that they all noticed, was quite fearful. The light that always came on after the dark period didn't. Something else, not only didn't it come on, but it actually got darker. Suddenly this place where she had been for years with her friends was in the dark. It was dim. They could see each other, but there was already anxiety. Now, Angel had always been the one who would lead the others and say, these things that happen are simply part of what happens. They're temporary. There will be a return to that which is normal. Don't worry. And if you could have a leader of the fish, she was. That wasn't all. The noise began. Now, noise is relative. If you want to define noise, it's the pressure of vibration against an eardrum that creates a sound in your head. Fish don't hear like you hear, but they sense the vibration, just like you do, and it's noise to them. For the vibrations, whatever frequencies that they would sense would be frequencies that you would sense, except that the noise would be different to a fish and startling. They can hear it. But the noise was severe. It was a vibration, literally, of the whole world that they were in. The whole tank was vibrating for some reason. They were stressed. Now it was dark and dim. And now the fish even started talking to each other and saying, this is not right, something awful is going on. Those who were the intellects in the group said, we're not going to last. It's the end. We expected it someday. Here it is. Some of them said, it's time to leap out of this world and suffocate. We know we can do it. We've seen our friends. Angel said, there's nothing here to ever elicit that. You're going to be okay. Just wait and watch. Don't fear. If fish could sing songs, Angel would be leading them. But the vibration was so severe that what happened to the gravel in the bottom of their tank, what they thought was something that never changed because it was always there. It's a place where food would drop. It was a place where you would scavenge and eat and all the other things that fish did with the gravel in the bottom. It was life sustenance. And suddenly, the gravel was oozing dirt and darkness and ugly things because the vibration was vibrating the gravel to such a degree that everything that was ever buried in the gravel was starting to come up. Some of the fish were having a hard time breathing. The water was so permeated with what used to be buried under the bottom that oxygen was tough to get. Then it got a little cold. This frightened them so much. Angel almost gave up. Angel almost said, they're right. We no longer have light. Now there's all this vibration, all these things floating up from the bottom, and the horror of the dirt we're seeing that we never thought was there, and the mold, and now it's getting colder. She held it together, and she held them together. And she was right. Because almost immediately after the cold came a normalcy, and it started to return. The noise went away, and the dirt settled, or was cleaned somehow by the filtering system, which a fish would say was the ocean. The darkness that was so ugly went away. And back came the light that they were used to. And all the fish looked at her and said, how did you know? How did you know that we would get back to this? And she said, we're not back. She said, everything is new. And they looked around and they saw it for the first time. All the things in the bottom that used to be what you would call accoutrements of a fish tank. The little diver with the bubble. The little house with the mermaid. They're all replaced with new little trinkets. And they spent the next few months investigating all of them, putting a little dirt on all of them, making it theirs. Let me tell you what happened. Let's go outside the fish tank for a moment. There was a man who owned the apartment, and a shift was coming in his life. He was going to renovate everything. And in the process of the renovation, he realized that a fish tank that was that big could not be moved. So the idea was this: keep them alive, keep them there, feed them, make sure they were still all right. But you got to disconnect the electricity from the lights, and you got to put a board so nothing from construction will fall in the tank. And then the construction began, and it was the cabinets that the fish tank was on. It was vibrating the tank so severely it almost broke the glass. He didn't know that. He found out, backed off on it. In the process, it had muckied the water because everything, all of the dirt had come up through the gravel. He didn't expect that. But he finished it all. And when it was done, the renovation was complete. It was hard even on him because construction is difficult. He had to move out for a while. That was uncomfortable. It was shift on a grand scale that he understood as the man in the apartment. But what did the fish know? Their world was isolated. They didn't see the bigger picture, that a renovation was occurring and that things would occur which were brand new. They didn't know it, but the man also, he got a new temperature sensor because the other one broke in the process of being vibrated. He caught it in time, but the water got a little cold. He warmed it up. He changed the filtering system completely. As long as he was doing more electricity on the lights, why not go all the way? The fish were breathing better. They felt much different. Angel knew there was something different. And they were celebrating every moment. Do I have to paint a picture for you? In some ways, you're all the fish. And you have a reality that you've gotten used to, not understanding how Gaia works, how the Creator works, how the shift works, how consciousness might work. All you see is trouble. And there are those who would say, Kryon says it's getting lighter. I read my news. It's ugly. I'm having a hard time breathing because of all of this ugly darkness. If you're an American, you get to watch something that is profoundly dysfunctional in the government. Suddenly, everyone is at everyone else's throat. Nothing is getting accomplished. And the whole idea is to beat up the other one. Doesn't matter what you believe anymore. You just want to beat them up. And that is what happens every single day. And if you get lucky enough, you'll put them in jail. That's scary. It's scary because you've had 200 years of a democracy that worked. It worked to the degree that things got accomplished. That laws were a combination of ideas that were strong enough to have consensus because there was negotiation involved. When's the last time you saw that, American? And the answer is, it's been a while. That's frightening. You start looking at the dark things that are coming out of the woodwork, as they say, on this planet. Oh, you haven't seen anything. We'll say it again. Wait till you see the extent of the horror of children's sexual slavery. It's bigger than you think. And it's almost everywhere. This has been covered so well for so long. The light is coming out, dear ones. And there will be those who caught up, and it'll startle you, it'll shock you, how it's funded and who's involved. And it's coming. And there will be those, again, who watch the news and say, it's the worst of the worst. We're doomed. Not understanding the fish tank is under construction. And there will come a time when the light comes on again, and the water is pure, and the air is better. And all of these things, although they may sound metaphoric, there's a truism to all of them. because humanity, in its evolvement, will also clean itself up and the planet up. There'll come a time when you will attack the garbage patch in the ocean and clean it, and it will take time, and there will be thousands involved because they understand it and know that it is absolutely necessary. Did you ever think you'd see that? It's coming. Human nature is going to start to evolve into a paradigm never was there before, you didn't expect. And that's one of the reasons why you can feel free to step out and do things you've never done before. Because history is not repeating itself. Oh, dear ones, there are things that will be abominable to look at. Did you know that when light starts coming out, those who have been invested in the dark will also come out and show themselves in awful ways? Some of them will go out of their way to take a lot of people with them as they go out. It's their way of saying, take this, light. But they'll do it because light is winning. The dysfunctionals will become more dysfunctional, and the ones who have been invested in darkness will go right to the wall with it. I've told you this before. Watch for it, look for it. It doesn't mean things are coming to an end. It means things are rejuvenating. It's going to be in your news even soon. Those are being called upon inappropriateness of a grand scale. Those who have known about things for a very long time. Governments who have authorized things for a very long time. And there will be those who will expose them. Only this time, the light will sustain itself. And there will be then penalties to pay. Careers that will be ruined, as is already happened on this planet. Those who feel they can dabble in darkness and get away with it because others did it before them. Let there be notice right now that this fish tank that you live in is starting to improve itself. And that the vibration that you feel is the shift. The things coming up through the gravel have always been there underneath the sight that you've had. Now vibrating to a place where you can look at them, and some of you are even breathing them. That's how ugly it can get. But dear ones, that's all in the cleaning process. That's rejuvenation. That's remodeling. Just ask Angel. You got an angel inside yourself, every one of you. It is an angelic form, this higher self, this soul. It is created in the image of God, meaning it's created in the love and compassion and the benevolence of the Creator. You have DNA that resounds in it, all 23 pairs of chromosomes, unique to you and those from the stars. This is who you are. This is what's going on, dear ones. Which kind of fish are you going to be? Beautiful. And so it is. Hello, I'm Lee Carroll.
And really the meditation, it's just to stop, take a breath, allow the intellect to take a back seat, because we want to connect with our heart energy. Our heart and brain and pineal all work together to give us intuitive messages. That's where the intuition comes from. And so let's take a breath, close our eyes, dismiss all thoughts of what we need to do when we finish or what we were doing before we started. This is your time. This is your sacred space. This is your gift to yourself. to sit and receive. Allow yourself to receive the perfect love that Kryon has.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. If you're new to this particular program, dear ones, you might ask the question, when channeling occurs, does the one in the chair, the one that is channeling, know what is being said? It leads me to tell you that the man in the chair has an agreement with me, the engineer of 30 years ago, made certain that he would hear and be there. He steps aside, you might say, but he's still here. And this was the agreement that I had with him, so that he would be comfortable with what comes through the veil. Now, there are many who channel where it makes no difference whatsoever. In fact, they say that it is a more complete experience, for some can get up and walk around, and my partner cannot. This was the trade-off, that his eyes would remain shut and that he would not move around. He's tried a number of times. It didn't work out well. I say this because he's here. It is not an out-of-body experience to the degree where he goes somewhere else and returns later and knows nothing that happened. Fully aware he is. He can even tell you what was said. But he does not influence the message. The message of Kryon can be summarized in many ways, but it's all about you, dear ones, and it changes. The messages change as you change. If you wish to see the kind of changes, even before these particular channels were recorded in an audio fashion, you can see it by reading the messages. And the first messages would seem cryptic, almost metaphoric, and not what they are today, because the consciousness has changed of those receiving. It really has. The biggest message I ever had to any of you has been that the consciousness on the planet is shifting. My first message to you was that the magnetic grid would shift accordingly, in order to allow a higher consciousness to be in the couch of the magnetics of the planet. That is a metaphor, and what it means is that the magnetic grid of the earth literally is allied to consciousness. Now, that was a stretch all those years ago to say those things, and there was no proof. Today there is. That has been part of what my partner does, is to go from city to city and to show all of the science and the proof of this. But that's not what we do today. You see, consciousness is starting to really shift. There are those who would ask a lot of questions, especially about the human body. We're in a session now which we will call a healing time. Not all of the channels will be about healing. This one truly is, for it asks a bigger question than anyone truly has asked. And that is this: is there something in the human body that is so different from consciousness that actually runs the show when it comes to your chemistry? And it's not your brain, and it's not your heart, and it's not your pineal. And the answer is yes. And it is well known by many. It even has a name, and the name is called innate. Innate is that which many have called the smart body. Smart because it knows a lot more than you do. A lot more. For instance, if you have an invasion, a virus, a bacteria, anything, innate knows it immediately. White blood cells are racing to the place where perhaps it occurred. You have no idea, and won't until the symptoms of that occur, maybe days later. Innate knows all of these things instantly. Dear ones, innate will know when the first cancer cell enters your body. And you'll find out perhaps weeks later, maybe even months later, when something just isn't right. And then the tests will begin. Therefore, innate is some very, very special thing. Every single human has it. Those who use it as a tool use it through a process they have called kinesiology. Some will call that muscle testing. That is one way to ask innate questions. Another process called body talk. It's the same kind of process, perhaps a little more refined, where it takes a trained medical person then to ask the questions of the body in a certain order to pinpoint the things that you want to know, that you need to know. Do you know your blood type? You say, well, yes, I had a test the other day. No, I didn't ask you that. Would you have known your blood type without the test? Of course not. Innate does. You see where I'm going with this? One of the most elegant processes that talks to innate in a curative fashion, instead of one that asks questions, is homeopathy. We have spoken of this before too. Here's a system of sending signals to your smart body of what you wish to cure. And through tinctures carefully prepared, there are tiny, tiny chemical amounts, much too small to cause any kind of a reaction, put into the body under the tongue, and it becomes curative. It's like innate starts to see, oh, that's what she wants. Oh, that's what he wants. And the curing begins. There is so much proof of this, dear ones, for hundreds of years. This is not something that has come since the shift. It's not something that you get from the New Age. It is not something that you get from channeling. This has been around a long time, and the reason I am speaking of it now is because this is what's going to change. I want you to show you just how archaic right now this whole process is. It's almost like you're standing in a dark room, and there's a wall, and you know on the other side of the wall is all of the secrets of your chemistry. What's going on? What's going on right now with your body? That's what you know is on the other side of that wall. And you see, you might say that wall is what separates you from innate. And at this point in human civilization, you're still poking the wall. You poke it to see if it pokes back. You ask the wall questions in a certain way. You give it tinctures and chemicals. It's all metaphoric. But do you see what I'm saying? Never does innate step forward and say, hello, it's nice to know you. What is it we're going to do today? What if you could do that? You have an amazing body intelligence. That's what it is. It's intelligent, that knows what's going on. That intelligence is responsible for all processes in the body. That particular innate not just knows what's going on, but you might say it's the control panel of what's going on. Of course, it works with the brain and consciousness, the heart, the pineal, but it doesn't represent itself as being one of those things. but it receives instructions from all of them. Here's what I want to tell you. That wall will soon become a piece of paper. And in that, you'll be able to not only see what it is that you cannot see now, but you're going to start realizing you can communicate. You can communicate one-on-one. What if you could talk to your innate right now? And that speaking that you would have would be you with yourself. Have you ever thought about speaking to your own innate in a friendly way? In an authoritative way? After all, you are the boss of your body. Years and years ago, I started saying, it's time to talk to your cells. Talk to the cellular structure of your body. These are my, I would say, long-term instructions, even before these times occurred, this shift occurred. And now that is so much greater and grander than simply talking to your cells or even having a meeting. If you're in charge of your body, and if innate is there in every single human, and it is, what do you think innate would like? Put yourself in the place of being on the other side of the wall. What do you think innate would want? Here's the control panel for the human being, you, who is blocked from really seeing or talking to you. Every once in a while, it'll answer questions. Every once in a while, it'll see an instruction set come along, but it doesn't know you. What do you think it wants? If you could put a personality on innate, what would it want? I'll tell you what it wants. It wants you. More than anything else, your body would love to be able to have a conversation with you one-on-one. And what would you say to innate if the wall came down? And that, dear ones, is about healing. And that, dear ones, is what happens in the circle of 12, because, you see, innate is multidimensional. And you might say, well, how do you know that, Kryon? And I'll tell you, because DNA is multidimensional. That has been proven. Part of your cellular structure is multidimensional. Not all of it. But innate is part of all of those dimensionalities. And it's the reason you're not able to stand up and simply talk to it, because you remain in 3D. But that is starting to change. What would you say to innate? Years ago, I told my partner what to say to innate. And I said, innate is responsible for the quickness of your rejuvenation. Innate is also responsible for how often you rejuvenate, how often the cells divide. You might think that is a process that simply happens in the body. Innate controls it. There has to be a time clock. And if you do nothing and you say nothing, that time clock will simply happen by itself on its own. But if the boss wants to speak, and that's you, how about you say this? Count every other day. Let's have aging slow down. Let's not age with the clock that was given to you, body. Let's control it. Let's talk to innate, who controls all things, and that is aging. And that's just one of so many things that you could say to your innate. And does it work? Oh, yes, it works. I told you before that the body is designed to live a lot longer. Twice right now, maybe even 3 times what your lifespan is. And the only reason it doesn't is because it defaults to the clock that you were born with, not the one you're telling it. The circle of 12 puts you in a multidimensional place where you can begin to speak to your innate. And that is what some of you are feeling, a meld that goes right into your cells. These are the messages that I want to give more and more. What is happening now that is so different from back then, but that we talked about back then when we spoke of the new human in a new normal? And that is what is happening today. And so it is.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. The pendulum of reality swings yet again into my corner. And there is an element of disbelief. In a group of old souls, there is always this. They say it's too easy. Some will say it's too easy to fake. And so we say this to you before we begin this discussion. It's about love. That's what it's about. It always has been, and it always will be. And it's not the love that you think. There is a force in the universe even your astronomers have recognized and seen, identified, and they call it intelligent design. Because the universe itself is biased. It's biased into creativeness. It's biased in life creation. It's biased in love. There is purpose for everything. Astronomers, science, physicists, they want to see complete and total neutrality within all things, and they don't find it. And that's one of the things we want to discuss, the power that is starting to become yours in the understanding of energies around you which you have never identified as energies that specifically are what we're going to call informational. This is one of the first multi-dimensional channelings of a series, starting to explain to you in a better fashion concepts that have been misunderstood or not explained at all, in order to start you thinking about what you can do. And that is the purpose. It's a big distance between the nucleus and the electron haze. If you could go with me to the smallest of the small, you'd find an enormous amount of emptiness. Physicists will tell you that most of you are made of nothing. And it's only because they just don't see what's in the dark. And the multidimensional truth is this: between that which is the nucleus of the atom and the electron haze, it's filled with information, energy, love, and intelligent design. Difficult to explain how this manifests itself to your reality, but that is indeed the subject. So we'll start slow and easy. There it is, my friends, a rose. Imagine it. A beautiful rose. This one's red. And you don't like it. You don't like the thorns, perhaps. Maybe you don't even like the color, perhaps. And you say to yourself, I'd like it a lot better if it was a daisy. But it's a rose. Now, in single-dimensional digit thinking, or law 3D, The scenario is this: it's too bad you've got a rose when you wanted a daisy. Because it'll always be a rose, you know. And if you could look at the seed that the rose grows from and regerminates from, it'll always be a rose. Too bad about the rose, you might say. And so the consensus of thinking and the actions around it are this: it will always be a rose, therefore I will never be able to change it. Now consider for a moment a multi-dimensional scenario where the master gardener visits the seed. Imagine for a moment that the master gardener can tell that which is the seed to systemically alter the information of what it is. And so that the next time the cells start to divide, the thorns drop off. And the color changes. And maybe, even maybe, a daisy grows instead. And what would you call this? And the answer is a miracle. And that is how you define things that look out of the purview of your dimensional reality. I want you to start looking at these things differently. I want you to start seeing information that is multidimensional as energy. A tremendous amount of what you just call energy is only information. It leads us to the next phase of this teaching. For now we give you a discovery on the planet that has been made, that is being used. And the discovery is this: that you can address the cells, that is to say, the DNA portion of the human body, to change its informational structure. Not to belabor an issue, but you must remember what the scientists discovered about DNA. 5% of it is chemical, protein-encoded, gene-producing engine. 95% seems to do nothing. So what you have is this: a DNA structure, one DNA loop that has 3 billion chemicals in it, and 5% is the engine of the biological race car called the human being. And 95% is the driver. It's a consciousness. It's energy. It's information. And it's huge. And if you could change the information in those DNA parts, what would you say to them? Well, let me give you an example of something that's already been done. Let us say you're born with a deformed heart. Here is a heart that is not operating properly. The valves don't fit. And let us say that that is who you are, a red rose with thorns. And so in your reality, you're going to die sooner. You will not operate well. You may be on drugs when you're older, and you'll always have a deformed heart. You might ask the obvious question: since all of the organs rejuvenate many times over your life, Why is it systemically that those stem cells are given information to continue rejuvenating a broken heart? Why does it stay deformed? And here's the answer. Because the information stays static. Without something to change the energy of the information within the systemic system of the human body, it will always repeat what it has. The rose will always be the rose, and the thorns will always grow there. What if you could literally change the information in the 90% of your DNA? What if you could change not only the information systemically, but even subconsciously as to who you are and why you're here? They're starting to learn how. Addressing the information energetically in DNA so that the stem cells are given a pattern of perfectness instead of the deformity. And as the heart then starts to regenerate, as all organs do, slowly it becomes a functioning heart and the valves fit. And you think that's science fiction. I'm telling you, it's being done now. For on the planet, multi-dimensional inventions are starting to occur. There will be many more, pushing the envelope of your believability and changing physics. You've seen this, and you don't even know you've seen it. I'll ask you some other questions that you haven't really thought about. We brought these up before, and now we can discuss them more fully. Why can a starfish grow back an arm and you cannot? Because the programming in your body, in your DNA, in the information, the race driver driving the car has been instructed that those kinds of things only are to be done in the womb. And the instructions are always that way, and they repeat every time a cell divides. There'll come a day when you can change the instructions and you'll be able to grow back a limb. All of the chemistry is there. It's not that hard. But the instructions say you can't. And so they don't grow back. Imagine the race car driver in a splendid machine that can go for so long with instructions that he can only turn left. That's what a race car driver does, you know. What if you straighten out the racetrack and suddenly you got a left-hand only driver? What happens to the driver when the racetrack straightens out and he doesn't know how to do anything but make left turns? You got to change the information that he has. And that is what is being done. When the spinal cord is severed, there is chemistry that races to the place of the severing, so it won't grow back. Did you know that? There is a hormonal, proteinal structure that actually keeps it from growing back. How does that serve humanity? Well, it doesn't. Nerves are designed to grow back. And they don't. Did you know they even have addresses, color codes? They can find each other in the dark and grow back. And they don't. Because built into the race driver's information is not to grow back a spinal cord severing. There'll come a day when you can reprogram the systemicness. Stem cells exist everywhere in the human body, alive and well. They are what pattern what happens. Chemically, they are responsible for a human that is predisposed to disease. And that predisposition will be then carried to the child. And the imprint and the energy and the information of the 90% will continue and continue and continue unless it's reprogrammed. Unless the information is given to it to become different. It's not chemical. It's energy. It is multi-dimensional energy. New technology to reprogram pieces and parts of the body. Do you know what this means? There are women in the room who respond to this, who carry a gene that their ancestors carried and that they carry and that their children will carry on predispositions to certain kinds of weaknesses. And when you can rewrite your genetic print, none who follow will have it either. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Your children and your children's children will only have the reprogramming. They will not have the original information. Energy is like that. Informational energy is like that. And there's a lot of it on the planet. There are systems on the planet that have been misunderstood for a long time. Let me give you a couple. This is controversial. You may not agree. You may not like it. But I'm going to give it to you anyway. Humans love things that go bump in the night. They love to be frightened. They love to be scared. They love movies that scare them. And they love haunted places. Have you seen the upsurge in the interest of haunted places? Now let me tell you what they are and why they work the way they do. And now we get into the power of the information of the Eckhart. Human consciousness carries an imprint which affects the planet. And we have told you this from the beginning, 21 years of it. Human consciousness is what is going to change the planet. Human consciousness is information. It is information that you develop based upon what you think. And it's powerful. Human consciousness actually goes into what we have called the crystalline grid of the planet, which is a multi-dimensional grid. You can't see it. It holds energy. It holds information. When the planet is measured for vibration, it is the crystalline grid that is measured. And the crystalline grid only has on it what humans have put there. An interdimensional record of thought, of lifetimes, of happenings. And here's what I'm going to tell you. In certain conditions, in certain ways, a human life or an interaction of multi-lives together in a scenario that is profound for whatever reason of its profundity will create an imprint in a place. It's information and energy that will replay itself over and over and over like a recording tape in 3D. It's a haunted house. Did you know that? And here is some of the things, the attributes that we may not prove it to your psyche, but will give you something to think about. Did you notice that in a haunting, you have a scenario which repeats? The man comes down the stairs. The man goes up the stairs. The woman in the kitchen moves from the left to the right, sits in a chair, rocks for a while, moves away. If it involved dramatic things such as murder, the man comes down the stairs with the axe. Over and over and over and over. It's a good movie, isn't it? And that's all it is. Why does it feel the way it feels, Kryon? Because it is a result of human consciousness imprint, and you've got one too. And when you're there interfacing with it, it gives you chills, because it's real. Now science has gotten involved, as they should, and they're noticing something. The imprint, the haunting, carries scientific attributes, and they're all multidimensional. Guess what changes? Magnetics, gravitation, light, and even time. Because what it is a multi-dimensional event imprinted onto a place on the planet that plays over and plays over and plays over. Can you capture it on tape? Uh-huh. Because it knows it's being observed. Because it's part of an imprint that is multidimensional. In a quantum sense, it knows. I can't explain that to you. You assign knowing to sentiency, that is to say, that which is intelligent in a human being. And it isn't either of those. It's a knowing that is quantum. It knows when a human being can be frightened, and it frightens it. Oh, I have more to tell you. Oh, there are things that you wouldn't believe that you can do. How would you like to get rid of that? Let's say it's in your house. Now, this may be very inappropriate, but I'll give you the answer. You're going to have to present an energy that is stronger than the imprint of the haunting. You cannot order it away. You already knew that, didn't you? No amount of huffing and puffing or calling upon God will make it different. The imprint was created by magnificent beings, sometimes seeming to do ordinary things. There's a reason for that as well. You don't know who they were. You don't know the old souls involved. You don't know who it is, really. You've got to present an energy that is stronger than the haunting. Now, what could that be? As inappropriate as it is, I will tell you. Why don't you make love in that room? That'll do it. Because that's stronger. Anyone who's been in love in the room, and there's some secrets here that I know. Beautiful ones that I know. Knows the power and the energy of humans coming together in intimacy. And the angels sing, and you create a third energy which is more powerful than the two of you. And you know it. It's sacred. It's beautiful. And it's stronger than the haunting. Maybe you didn't want to hear that today. But what about other things? What about like demon possession and all these? And I will tell you this, it's different than you think. Because there are no demons. Humanity can conjure up The most evil of the most evil, and it can do it all by itself. And you knew that too, didn't you? Because you're powerful. The pieces in God, in you, even in your mythology, are responsible for the devil himself. A fallen angel, how can that even be? It is a metaphor of what a human can do on the earth with the energy that they have. Things are not always what they seem. What about talking to the dead? And how would that work, Kryon? How could you talk to famous people when in the scheme of soul incarnation, they've already come back as others? Now, if they've already left, how can you talk to them? And the answer is this: they haven't left. Oh, the part that you think is the human left, but the imprint of them and their entire life and everything they knew, their consciousness, their wisdom, their knowledge, goes right into the crystalline grid. We've talked about this before. Can you contact famous people and get information? Yes. Will it be accurate? Of course, because you're talking to the source. The imprint remains. You mean you're not actually talking to them? You're talking to the imprint? Let me give you something to think about. I'm going to ask a question right now. And it's going to be a rhetorical one. Who are you? I have old souls in front of me. There's a woman in the room who won't wear red. And you know who you are. I'll tell you why, because it got you killed. Because that was the color of the plume on your helmet, warrior. Because you were the captain, and they knew if they would take you out, your whole regiment would be in disarray, and that's what happened. Not only kill you, killed everyone around you. You'll never wear red. You just don't like the color. It's just not for you. You shun it, don't you? Old soul, who are you? Who are you? Are you the warrior who got killed? Are you the woman who won't wear red? Are you the mother? Who are you? It is a rhetorical question because in my reality, you are a piece of God. And so when you go to that place where you wish to conjure up one who has lived before and ask them questions, who are you talking to? Are you talking to the Urkosh of a soul? Are you talking to that which is alive or dead? I will tell you, none of those things are accurate because you don't really know. It's even more magnificent than that. Can you ask Aunt Martha where the treasure was buried? Yes! And she'll know, because you're talking to the Aunt Martha imprint. And she'll know. Now, if you ask Aunt Martha, how are things on the other side? She'll say, beautiful. What's it like over there? Lovely. No, give me some specifics. I love you. She doesn't know. Aunt Martha knows what Aunt Martha knows. You think of it in singularity, and it's not. It's powerful, it's real, and it's there to be accessed. It's multidimensional, and those with gifts can access the wisdom of the ancients. Go back and ask them what they knew. Go back and ask them how it felt. Go back and ask them where the treasure is buried. You're going to see some of this. And those in the places of magnificence on this planet, wearing the costumes of spirituality, and the heads of state and religion will call it evil and will call it occult, not understanding that you are moving into a multi-dimensional state, appropriate, accurate, true, usable, correct, helpful. All of those things. Does that make sense to you? Let me give you a concept, and this will be the last one. I've saved the complicated one for last. That's my favorite one. We haven't done this before, my partner, so get it right. I want to show you how time works. And I can't. Because the reality of the complexities of multidimensionality preclude the human being's ability to understand it. It's simply not teachable. So I will metaphorize it and give you it in its simplest form, which is only a fraction of its reality. Time. We mentioned today that it is a singularity for you. There's only one of them. There's no multiple times. There's only one. And you're on one track on the planet. You're all on the same track. That is a singularity. It only goes one speed. It always has for your life. It doesn't move. The truth of it is it moves all the time. Another truth you don't understand is that each of you can step off the track and create a faster or slower one. You don't know that either. How do we explain this? So let me singularize it and pretend you're all on the same track for a moment. That's what you think anyway. That's easy. And I want you to build a track, a train track, which is time. I want you to put an engine upon it which goes in one direction very slowly, and that's you and your life. I want you to make the train track, however, go all the way around the earth. Now, to your perception, because you can only see to the horizon, the train track goes straight. The truth of the matter, it goes all the way around the earth, and you're looking at it behind you. Create that kind of time for a moment. Now that puts time in a circle. Now that is confusing because it's a conundrum for you. In 3 dimensions, you cannot put time in a circle. It is in a circle. Because it's in a circle, however, take a look at some of the attributes that are confusing to you. Let us say your lifetime takes about 30 meters. Not very long on this track that goes around the earth, is it? So you never have to really worry about meeting your past, do you? But let's pretend for a moment you could. What would happen if you drove that engine around the earth? Eventually, you would be running over the energy of what used to be, wouldn't you? In the same way of thinking, if you went around the earth several times, eventually you might be also running over what might become. Suddenly you have an attribute of time you haven't thought about. If it's in a circle, it means the future affects the present. And you think the future hasn't happened yet. It hasn't in 3D. It has in a quantum sense. Now, I'm giving you information right now, and I'm giving it to you this way because there are scientists looking at it in that way. Is it possible that the future could give you energy and information now? Think of this train track for a moment, and let's get more complicated. It's got layers now. Every time the train goes around it, which is a human life, things change. What if it was humanity in that engine? Now you have the past, present, and the future of everything that's ever happened on one train track in a circle. Now you have a situation where you could stop the train, dig down in the tracks, and maybe if you had the ability, pick up something that either hasn't happened yet or happened before. I didn't expect you to understand it. Only listen to it. Because that's what's happening. Let's complicate it. Let's say this track has to go up some hills and down some valleys. And the hills and the valleys are always the same. If you were smart enough and had a system that understood this time, you could create bumps where it might be difficult or easy and actually put them on a map. You might even call them time fractals. And you might be right. And every time you hit that place in time, whether it was in the future or the past, you got a hill or a valley. And I want to tell you what's happening at this moment, dear human being. I just gave you the simplest way I can give you the attributes of multidimensionality when it comes to time. You are visiting potentials that in your mind have not happened, but in a quantum sense have. You are receiving a vibrational increase so that you can look at the track of time and select where you want to go. You are looking at the potentials of the quantumness of vibrational shift and creating a culture that is going to go beyond what you think it could go, because it's going to fly in the face of all prophecy. Because prophecy is based on one track that does one thing over and over in 3D. And as soon as you start to become multidimensional, information becomes energy. And in that track of time is information of the potentials. Okay, I'll tell you, nobody asked. Except the ones who are asking. It would seem like I just turned a page because there's someone in here who wants to know what a crop circle is. And so I'll tell you, it's a good thing you ask. It's an energy stamp from the future. How about that? Now you don't know anything more than you did before. Not a future that you went through. A future that has such a grand potential and a quantum state that is one with everything. You've already lived it. You're in an entangled state with that which you think has not happened, but which has happened so grandly, you already have peace on earth. And 21 years ago, I showed it to my partner so grandly. He can't deny it. It's his reality. And there are things in the room you can't deny, because there are realities of you putting lives together, healing bodies that you've already done. That's how grand it is. You're in an entangled state with a reality that's outside of your dimensional perception. Hard to teach, hard to understand, but easy to feel. Easy to feel. Imagine the solution is upon you. Imagine those things which you're planning already completed. Imagine yourself looking backwards and saying, "Oh, that wasn't too hard, was it?" Imagine the most perplexing things you've brought to the table today over with. How do you feel about it? And human being, if you can take a breath of release and look at it like I can, you are becoming quantum. And you've just created it. Congratulations. Now go from this place in your three-dimensional way and walk through the steps that you've already done. And that's my message. Information is energy. In a multi-dimensional state, all things are possible. You come here to listen to a thing like this, old soul, you wouldn't have missed this. And I'm not talking about this meeting, I'm talking about this life. How many times have you lived waiting for this? What do you think the wisdom factor is in your Akashic record? If you've lived and lived and lived and lived and lived, how about that track of time? How many layers does it have for you? What about going in, drilling down, and picking up the wisdom of your ancients? Because many of you are your own ancestors. It's about time you started seeing it in that way. My partner says, leave differently than you came. He got that from me. Do it. Do it. And so it is.
So why don't you close your eyes and take a breath with me. Big inhale. And another inhale. And let your body soften, relax. Your shoulders, just like the back of the chair supports you, the bottom of the chair. Feel where your feet are on the floor. And let the top of your head just gently float up, like your head is weightless. Your neck is soft. And just feel the gentleness of your breath coming in and out. And know that you don't need to have a thought about anything. And just let your awareness be in this moment of healing potentials, healing possibilities, and the energy around you of love. Because that's where that healing comes from, is the energy of honoring and love that Kryon has for humanity. And as you let that honoring enter your heart, feel it soften and expand. Feel a warm, glowing place there. And know that in this very moment, the arms of Spirit embrace you and honor you and are ready to give you that great gift of healing and a look at your own divinity.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Channeling is not always the same. From my partner, it's not always the same. The messages are sometimes tailored for those in the chairs.
The agreement with my partner is that all recording will be done of all messages all the time. Sometimes they are so personal that we stop the process, mysterious as it may be to him as an engineer, why it doesn't work. But he goes through the motions of recording anyway. Some may listen to this message that we give in these last moments of the day, and they will not feel what you're going to feel here in the chairs because they haven't been here. Now, some of you are aware because you can see my partner's field that when he stands to give you his lectures, I'm here with him. The idea of sitting in a chair and throwing a switch for Kryon went away years ago for him. He lives with me. I live with him. There's a marriage here. There's a focus here. There's an agreement here. That as he speaks anywhere, I can pop in. And I can give direction. And some will hear it and some will not. Some will see the difference because when I come in, his aura changes. The field around him, called the aura, which is more than what you think an aura is, repatterns itself instantly. A come and a go. Some of you are sensitive and you can tell it, you can see it. He's been channeling all day. I know who's here. Those who may hear this, who are not here, may not understand these few words I have and what we're going to say and what we're going to do. Sometimes the channelings have profound information that are new, historical processes just coming, future and predictions, and some of them are not. Some of them are just us sitting here together, loving each other, discussing what is happening in the room, and those who will listen later is like flies on the wall. That's one of these channelings. For those listening to this after the fact, I want you to be aware you're just listening to what is going on in a room full of light workers, because this is for them. You in the chairs right now, not for the others. There's a wind blowing through this room of spiritual purpose, and it's touching all of those who want to feel it. We never said those words before. Sometimes there's a synchronicity of light workers and old souls that come together in a perfect way in order to accomplish things. There's a reason why you met today, a reason why there's a camaraderie today, and you don't know one another, not really. But you don't have to. All of you have that which is in you, which is the essence of God. You have God inside. I have an invitation for some of you right now. It's difficult to even name it. Humans want titles. What's the channel about, they say. Give it a title, we'll feel better. Give it some words, give it some linear grounding by giving it a title. And somehow, then they can file it in some magic, logical filing cabinet and make it all right. What if I said this is titleless? You're not going to like that. So I'll call it something. Completing the circle. Listen to me. that which is human is often very linear. All you can be is what you know and what has been. It is so difficult for you to step out of one thing into another when you don't know where you're stepping. If we told everyone here, we need you to move into an area of reality that is different from yours, where you can't see the ground you're walking on, but you have to trust it's there, or you're going to feel bigger than you are even though your physicality hasn't moved, or that you're going to be in two places at the same time, get used to it. Many of you would have said, I don't think I'll do that today. There would be disorientation, there would be dizziness perhaps, there would be this, there would be that. It doesn't suit you in the physical. I don't blame you. There is fear of these kinds of changes. When things are working for you, why change them? You tend to think in this fashion. It's understandable, totally. But as you think this way, you stay in a straight line. You live in a straight line. And the relationships that you have, all except for one or two, are in a straight line. Listen, you're not even aware of the linearity of the straight line. It starts early with your parents. There's communication from your mom, from your dad, to you and back. It's a straight line, A to B, B to A, A to B, B to A. They tell you to do one thing, you do it. The actionable items are in a straight line. The instructions are given, linear, in a straight line. You grow up, and the relationships you have with others, one to another, one singularity to another, one line to another. A straight line here, a straight line there, a straight line there. You're not aware of the unnaturalness of this. When you look into space, what do you see? Circles. Spheres. Dear ones, the only straight lines you see in space are the ones you draw between constellations. It's not natural. When you look at how chemistry works in the human body, it's a closed system in a circle. Very few, if any, real straight lines. It's physics, it's in 3D, and yet it's built in a circle. The very life-giving fluid called blood pumps in a circle. And there you are, A to B, B to A. You get spiritual, and it doesn't matter what the doctrine is, it doesn't matter what you believe. There is God, and then there's you. And God is always enormous and huge and beautiful, and there you are, little. And even if you draw a relationship to God timidly, it's a straight line to the Almighty. Sometimes you're on your knees and on your faces in a straight line to God. God is big, you're not. And then when you need help, it's help me, God. You talk to God, God talks to you in a straight line. You're not even aware of the circle. You go to those who are spiritual for help, it's the same way. Everything, all that is a relationship to you, whether it's professional or spiritual, tends to work in a straight line. All except one. If you start to have love in your life, it's magic. Whether it's human to human, human to child, human to animal, when you have love, you open the circle. And suddenly everything is different. The love is an emotion, but it's more. Since it's the basic energy of the universe, it's enhanced because it's created. It doesn't come from the brain. It doesn't even come from the heart. It comes from the trilogy of the brain, heart, pineal. Innate is involved. Whole body experience, all cells are involved. You know that. When you fall in love, your chemistry is affected. The circle is complete. When you love an animal, when you love a child, they love you back and they hug you, you feel so complete. The completeness you feel is a relaxation into the arms of love. It's a circle. Because it's returned in a way you might even say is beyond reality. You might even say it's multidimensional. You might say it's a quantum feeling. It comes back on yourself. The circle is complete. It keeps going. It gets enhanced. And then you love it. You love even more. There are those of you who are in love with the planet. You're called tree huggers. And while you're hugging the tree, the circle is complete. You feel that which is nature hugging you back, responding to you in a language you don't even know is there. That is multidimensional. When Gaia can speak to the human being in such a way that the human says, I can live in the forest and eat and be happy alone. Because I have the love of this planet, and I feel the animals and the trees, I feel the birds in the sky, all as one thing. And I'm in love with this. It's a circle. When you look at the directions on the planet, it's a circle. The points of the compass, it's a circle. When you look at that, what you call the zodiac, it's a circle. On and on and on. When you take a look at the construction of music, the circle of fifths, ninths, whatever you want to call it, it's always a circle. Every musician knows this. All around you are the circles. And yet, the relationship you have with God is still a straight line. You think you're stuck. You come here and you say, how can I do this? How can I do that? Some of you even go so far as to say, help me, God, help me, Kryon. And what you're saying is, here, I'm here and I'm helpless. Please do something to me. Oh, how linear. Ones in this room, I want to tell you something. Every single one of you right now who is in perhaps even marginal distress or curiosity or feels stuck has a circle inside you you have not connected yet. And the circle is with the creative source. And it's the circle of love that the cells will awaken. When it's completed, you will start to see this circle non-linear, like everything else in this universe that works together. When you start connecting the circle, you'll understand that God is inside you and outside you. The linear human being thinks they're separate and apart from the creative source. That is how you're taught. When you go to the doctor, you're separate and apart from the doctor. The doctor tells you this and that. It's linear. You take a medicine. It's linear. You're there, it's there. It's going to help you if you're lucky. That's not a circle. Love is a circle. The more you give, the more it's returned. The bigger it gets, the more satisfying it becomes.
the more you can touch your heart and say, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. Whether you're in the forest, whether you're with another human, whether you're within your child, whether you're in love, it's different than being linear. And that is what you have here. The potentials are enormous. There are readers here that don't know they're readers yet. There are the ones who are completely and totally healed that don't know they're healed yet. Because the circle has not yet been complete. Are you ready? There's a wind passing through this place of spiritual purpose and healing that is ready to touch you, to make you feel more complete in the circle. Some of you are understanding this, and some of you are not. Kryon, what do we have to do? I want you to relax and metaphorically understand that if you will then fall in love with that which is inside you and connect it to the creative source, you'll stop being linear. The circle will start to be complete between that which is creation, that which is healing, that's with you, that's love, and the healing in your body will start. The balance will start to return. The purpose in your life will start to be known. The things that have happened recently to you, which have devastated you, will start to make sense, and you will stand in joy that they happened, because you'll see a bigger picture of who you are. There's a wind passing through this place that is ready to put anyone in a circle who wants to complete it. I speak metaphorically, metaphysically, esoterically. I speak in concepts. There's the third language going on. There's a wind going through this place. And I want you to stop and feel it now, because it's for you sitting in the chair. Do you dare feel it? Physically, perhaps you can feel it. It's really not physical. When love passes through cellular structure and completes the circle, life begins. Spiritual life can begin right now. For some of you who came for this in this place, we've never done this before. Ever. Those who are watching and listening at a future time are starting to realize this is a very special channel. Now I want to get real quantum with the listener who is not here. I want you to take a moment and I want you to give intuitive energy for those sitting in the chairs. And you'll say, well, it's a little late, Kryon, because the ones who are listening are at a later time. This is now, this is then. And I'll say, oh, how linear. You're not in the circle, are you? You see, the circle is timeless. You help each other, even from past lives. It's bigger than you think. The process is more complex, and yet it's simple. Because love takes care of itself. We said it before. You don't have to understand the mechanics in order to appreciate them, feel them, and use them. That's the way love is. The essence of your healing, that which you came for, which was situational, the emotions you're asking for, all the things you come with, when you connect the circle, will start to be solved. That's the message. And connecting the circle is not a linear thing. It's not something that is even what you would normally do. This is different. There are those who are going to go on to help a lot of people here if you connect the circle. That's what old souls are here for. There's a wind passing through this place. just for a few more moments. I want you to grab it. Take it. Apply it to yourself and see in you the circle. Make it gold. Make it violet. Make it silver. Make it a gemstone. Make it anything you need to, metaphorically, for it to be pure. Make it shine and sparkle. Put it inside and keep it there. And never let go of the ring. The connection is with the Creator, which has always been with you, always. A little different tonight, isn't it? We'll see whether this recording makes it or not, depending upon certain attributes that you don't know about. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service, telling you about God inside, about a new energy for the planet, about your lineage and your future. Be peaceful with these things, for they are beautiful. And so it is.
So yesterday we went and connected with an animal guide, and I loved the sharing that people had with me about their particular connections, and some interesting things arose where one animal guide connected, but when they emerged outside it was a different animal. And so that is multidimensional, which is what Kryon keeps telling us to be. So don't be confused by that. Embrace that. If you have an animal guide that comes to you and then it becomes a different animal guide, just know that it is perfect in the moment that you need. And what I would like to do is to continue that connection that we have created with our animal guide, if that's okay with everyone else, to go in and connect and keep traveling with our animal guide. So with that, I invite you to go to that place where you connected with your animal guide and greet each other. Welcome, hello, thank you, I see you. Thank you for this beautiful connection we share. And once you've established that connection, let us continue our journey as we walk along a path and we come across a river. And the river is the river of learning. And there is a desire to cross this river of learning and arrive into the land of knowledge. And so together with your guide, what is the way that you are now going to cross that river of learning? Take a moment to work out how together you are going to cross that river of learning. And trust that those answers are already there. Because there's been many, many times you have crossed your own river of learning. And as you're in that river of learning and going through now, realize how easy it actually is to do that, especially that you have guidance from your animal guide helping you to do so. And so now as you come across the shoreline, you come up onto the land of knowledge. And what is that knowledge that you now have? Is it possible that within you, you have the ability to manifest and connect with the guides that you need for whatever situation you come across. And there is a willingness from the guides that come within you and the ones that come to greet you. For the animal guides, which are part of Gaia, are still a part of you. You came from the earth. You are made of carbon. Within you is the biology that grew from this planet. And so those animal guides that connect with you are part of you. And so here you stand in the land of learning, ready for the next lesson.
Allow yourself to extend the learning and the knowledge that you are receiving from your guide, as Monika so beautifully guided us, from the animals, from your own personal guide that emerged from you here in the valley, to also extend yourself more into the land, connecting yourself as we're sitting here all together in the slope of a beautiful area, looking over on the other side, this teardrop arch, and beneath us is the beautiful valley of Monument with its peaks and columns. The air is blowing softly, caressing us, loving us, welcoming us, greeting us, blessing us, just as we bless it back from our hearts in gratitude, with love, with our compassion, with our presence, our beingness here, just being together, honoring the sacredness of the community, the people, the souls that are the caretakers of this land, and their ancestors that came before them. And feeling more of that collective unity and connection we all share with all living beings, with all living souls, animals, and the plants and the rocks. They all have consciousness. They all have different levels, different forms of energies. And this is such a beautiful space. We can deepen our connection to Mother Earth, to Gaia, as Father Sky looking upon us and smiling, with the multidimensionality that exists in everything and everywhere. Breathe and allow yourself to feel even more your sacredness, your beauty, your magnificence, your light and divinity, and connection to Source, to God, to Creator, to Spirit, that has no beginning and no end, that was always here and always will be, that love us unconditionally, beyond anything we could ever comprehend, but we can deeply feel when we allow ourselves to love ourselves more with our hearts. So breathe consciously, slowly, even more, connecting yourself right now, right here, in this moment, that will echo later on for you, whenever you want, when you tune back into this specific moment in this tour. Nijoni, beauty, beauty all around us.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon. of magnetic service. The meditations before this, the information, it holds energy. It asks you to participate. But when channeling is done, it opens a mini portal. That's what the channeling is, dear ones. The portal is not massive. It's not like some that you would open with groups. It's a minuscule one of connection, but it's a portal. And before I will do this, on this sacred land, in front of those perhaps who steward the land, before I will do that, I am going to ask permissions of the guardian of the canyon, those who have watched over this, who have watched over the stewards of the land, and have come before anyone else. I am going to ask permission for that portal. Sometimes it makes no difference to have a group come in and have a spiritual portal open and a channel given in most lands. But when you deal with these kinds of lands, you deal with that which is truly a beautiful hierarchy of stewardship, of those who would honor this particular place and have for centuries. With that permission given, we can continue for the days that remain. And for those perhaps listening who know the Kryon work, you may say, well, we haven't really done that before much. And I will tell you, we've done it every single time it was needed. We are so aware of that which is here, which might not be in other places that we channel. Dear ones who are here, sitting before me on the rocks, this is a perfect scenario. You sit on sacred land, stewarded by those who are the ancients and the daughters and sons of the ancients, in a beautiful sunlit place where all around you is the glory of Gaia. It doesn't get much better. And for those of you who wish to open your hearts at this moment and listen, I wish to present to you something that I have presented for more than a year and a half. But now I want to qualify, quantify, explain perhaps a little more. This shift that this planet is in has been prophesied by these ancients. You are sitting in their prophecy. So this is not new to them. All that has transpired in these past few years, difficult that it might be, was anticipated by those who have followed the prophecies and know the land. And in this shift, there is something happening regarding the consciousness of humanity. We've told you now for 33 years to expect something that you didn't expect. Who would have thought that the old energy of the planet, which is still raising its head right now, that energy eventually would go and be supplanted or replaced by a softer energy of caring, of compassion. I'll call it a family energy that says we do not want war. A family energy that says what is there that we have missed in that which we consider God, or that which comes from the love source, the creative source of all things. In other words, a consciousness that starts to advance itself in its own thinking. It raises itself to places it has never been before. This was the direct prophecy of the ancients all over the planet. And now you sit in that place. And in this, there are some new tools. I'm going to call them tools. But what they are is new awarenesses for you. If you are going to be one that I call old soul graduates or ascended ones someday, your ancestors someday, if that's going to happen, and we have predicted that it will, there has to come a time when you become more multidimensional and less linear. The linearity is that which you experience every day of life in the 4 dimensions you live and work in. But the dimensions that you can start to work with, that are indeed the dimensionality of Earth, of Gaia, of the guardians here, of the canyon, those dimensions you can start to see. And what I mean by seeing is not with your eyes. It's with the senses that you have beyond your eyes. The ones that so many know are there. Ones represented by the third eye, the bindi mark, the pineal, and so many of those who would celebrate in song and dance, even here. It's a celebration of things that are greater than you can conceive of in 4D. I want to introduce you to the ability to communicate with your soul. In order to do that, a brief summary of what the soul might be. What do you think of when somebody speaks the word soul? In the modern day religion of the times of this land, not the land we sit upon, but the culture of the greater continent, a soul is something you receive at birth often. Somehow it is apart from you, but it's very much aware of you, because when you pass, somehow that soul then gets rewarded or punished. And that is the purpose of the soul. I will tell you, dear ones, that's the kindergarten of all thinking when it comes to spirit. How many of you can feel in the sunlight, in the wind, that there is a consciousness of the land? Right now, that knows your name. That's because the land, Gaia, we call it, Pachamama, some call it, the love of the earth, is connected to the Creator. How could it not be? Everything you see around you was made at the same time. And dear ones, your soul was there to watch it. Your soul is the spiritual part of you, the God part of you. It is part of God. The creative source always existed, and with that creative source were trillions and trillions of that which were the source's partners, which we call souls. Did you know that? Were you ever told that? That makes the soul part of God. That makes you part of the Creator. When you come to this planet, all of that is hidden. As you begin the test of consciousness, which you are now in. But right now, you are in a crux that is going to change the planet very slowly. And in that, I invite you to meet your soul. And there will be those who ask how and what. And that is the subject of the channels in this great land. Wherever that takes us in this tour, these are the channels. The soul is accessible. In the circle of 12, we cross a bridge to get there. In the meditation of the partner Monika, it was the river that you crossed to take you there. There always is a barrier of thinking between 4 dimensions, practicality, and who you think you are to the next level. Some call it dream time. There are so many names that the indigenous will give it because they go there regularly. They go to that which is an upper world or an underworld to see things they need to see. There are so many stories of shamans which will then go to places, receive the information they need from that which is their spiritual soul, and come back and deliver their wisdom. Even that which is in the Old Testament, the metaphors are everywhere of this same property. Moses goes alone up the mountain to receive instructions. He is the shaman of that, his clan. It's everywhere, dear ones. And now we bring it home to you. Every single human being, old soul, has the ability to cross a bridge by themselves, if they choose to, and meet sections of their soul. This is the premise for the entire tour. And slowly I'm going to give you basic information about what is in your soul. Some of you already know, but I want you to understand it so greatly that you'll understand that it's not something separate from you any longer. That is what a higher consciousness brings, a higher connection to spirit, a higher connection to the land. It's an advancement, dear ones. And that higher connection, some have called a higher vibration, means more than just you sitting on a rock and singing. As some people say, that is what it is. It is not. It is far more spiritual, practical. It takes you someplace for a reason. If you're going to be in ascension status on this planet, you're going to have to understand a multi-dimensional connection, what the shamans know. And that is what we invite you to start understanding as we progress in this. It's going to sound a lot like Circle of 12, because we're going to ask you in every single lesson for your permission to go across a 4-dimensional bridge or barrier into a multidimensional place. And I'll describe it for you. You don't have to even imagine it. I'll tell you what's there. And I do that so that you will understand you can do it. And there are those who would sit and say, why? Beyond that, which is a higher consciousness of humanity, what happens to me? And that's where it gets good. Dear ones, it means longer life. It means more joy. It means understanding the not understandable. Have you ever sat and pondered why things are happening to you? Have you ever sat and pondered why things are happening to the earth the way they are? Have you ever sat and asked your own guides what's next because you're at a dead end? I'll tell you this, all of those answers are there for you. You become your own guide when you're in connection with your own soul. This is dramatic. It's more than was expected. It's controversial in metaphysics, and there will be those who tell you it's not possible, it never was possible. And if there are those around, I will tell them, it's time you read the prophecy of the ancients, because they told you it was coming. And it is. That's what to expect. And these, the few lessons to follow. What is there? What could possibly be there that can help you on your life? Healthy? Younger? All of these things are possible because you figure things out and you rest in the love that is there. If you know what's happening, you don't have anxiety or fear. And that's your soul telling you what's happening. Do you understand the premise? The deeper you go into that which is yourself and your own spirituality, the more you relax, the more you can laugh, the more you find yourself smiling for no reason, and you realize that there is truth when you hear, "Be still and know you are God." How would you like to have comfortable answers to difficult problems? That's available. We'll start that tomorrow. You're in a perfect place for this. Feel it, understand it, expect it. And lastly, this: if you're here, sitting on a rock, and you're saying, "This is a mystery to me. I really haven't done this much. I don't know where to begin." Here are my instructions. Number one, do you believe in the creative source? I think the answer would be yes. You call it God. Number two, do you believe a truth I've given you, that God, Spirit, knows who you are, and that there is angelic energies here on the rocks with you? Yes or no? Then here are your instructions. Dear Spirit, I'm in the dark. On some things, show me what it is I need to know. Take my hand and let's cross that bridge of knowledge together so I won't have to figure it out myself. And that's when the magic begins. It's called pure intent. You are heard. Definitely, you're heard. Gaia hears you now. Spirit hears you now. The guardians of the canyon, the ancients that have passed through here, they smile because you have just done what they know is possible. I am in Kryon, in love with humanity. And so it is.